Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Life of Business Manager podcast. This is the podcast where we break down the real world skills that every business manager needs to succeed. I'm your host, Sina Chan, and in today's episode, we are going to talk about how to manage a struggling department as a business manager. Now, if you or someone you know have ever been asked to help a struggling department, this episode is for you because we all know it that not all departments are the same. You have ones that can manage their own finances, their operations, and then we have others that can't keep their employees. So, if you've inherited a struggling team or have been asked to turn a department around or felt the pressure to fix the problems while you have leadership watching you closely, this episode is for you because today we're breaking down why departments struggle in the first place, the biggest mistakes managers make when trying to fix things, and how business managers can rebuild structure, trust, accountability, and stability inside their team. So let's get into the episode. Okay, everyone. So let's get started with segment one, which is the reality of a struggling department. So, one of the biggest challenges with managing a struggling department is realizing the problem usually goes much deeper than what you actually see surface level. Sometimes leadership may say that the productivity is low, but underneath that could be burnout, staffing shortages, poor systems, unclear expectations, weak communications, or even years of unresolved problems. So, this is where many business managers make a mistake when they take on a struggling department is they try to fix the symptoms before understanding the root cause of the problem. They start adding more meetings, changing workflows, sending emails, or increasing pressure without fully understanding why the department is struggling in the first place. But the reality is, you cannot improve a department if you don't fully understand it, the inside, the out, everything within that department. As a business manager, your first responsibility is to observe. Observe before making any type of reaction or changes because you don't really know what you're taking on when you're taking on a struggling department. Okay, everyone, now that you've observed the struggling department, in segment two, we are going to talk about active listening first. Because when you step into a struggling department, your first goal shouldn't be control, it should be clarity. And one of the most important things a business manager can do early on is to listen. Talk to the employees, the supervisors, the team leads, or even the people who are frustrated because struggling departments usually leave clues everywhere. People will tell you what processes are broken, where communication is failing, and what's actually slowing the team down. And sometimes the issue isn't about employees being lazy, it's that they're working inside a broken system. And great business managers understand the difference between a people problem and a systems problem. Because when systems are always chaotic, even the strongest employees that you have will struggle within that department. Just make sure you have that distinction because that matters to manage a struggling department. Okay, everyone, now that you've listened to segment one, which is to observe, segment two, which is to be an active listener, we're going to go into the meat of this episode, which is segment three, and that is to stop and focus on the bleeding first. So, one thing I've learned about leadership is you cannot fix everything all at once. When a department is struggling, your first priority is to stabilize it. Before you focus on any long term transformation, you need to regain the operational control. And that means identifying the biggest problems impacting the department right now, the major bottlenecks, the communication breakdowns, the workflow issues, or areas causing burnout within your team and frustration. Too many leaders try to change everything all at once, but overwhelmed teams don't need more chaos. They actually need structure. So, as a business manager, the small operational wins actually matter for you when you are managing a struggling department. When employees start seeing clearer communication, better organization, consistent leadership, and less confusion, you will see that the morale will slowly begin to improve. And that's what you want to see when you're trying to focus on what's bleeding first within this department. Okay, everyone, let's go into segment four. Now that you've stopped the bleeding first in segment three, so let's just talk about one of the most uncomfortable and most important part of managing a struggling department, and that is accountability. Because at some point, when you take on a struggling department, you will have to address performance issues directly. There's no way around it, and how you handle that moment will define the culture of your department more than anything else you do as a leader. And strong accountability is not emotional, it's structural. So the foundation of real accountability starts with having clarity. Every employee on your team should be able to answer these four questions without hesitation to improve clarity. And that is, the first one is, what is expected of me in this role? The second is, what does success look like? The third is, what responsibilities do I personally own? And the fourth is, what standards must I consistently meet? And what happens if I don't? If your team can't answer those questions, then accountability is going to be really difficult in this department because you can't hold someone accountable to a standard they were never clearly given. And this is where many struggling departments have a deeper problem than just individual performance. Most struggling departments suffer because there could be inconsistent leadership. So, for example, one employee could get corrected immediately for a policy violation, while you have another that gets overlooked. So, as a business manager, creating any consistency is one of your highest responsibility that you should take on when you are trying to manage a struggling department. The goal isn't to create a department where people are afraid to fail. The goal is to create a department where people can understand their responsibilities, have the support they need to meet them, and trust that the standards apply equally to everyone, including leadership. That's what real accountability looks like. And that's what transforming a struggling department into a high performing one looks like. Okay, everyone, let's go into segment five, which is start with communication. If you want to turn a struggling department around quickly, start with better communication. Most operational dysfunction doesn't start with a bad strategy or the wrong people. It actually grows in silence, meaning poor communication. Because as a business manager, communication becomes one of your strongest leadership skill. When your team doesn't know what's changing, what are the priorities, or where's the department headed, that uncertainty turns into frustration within your team. And when you have a frustrated team, you're not going to increase productivity or inspire people to work harder. As a business manager, communication is one of the most underrated tool that you can use to improve a struggling department. And I'm not talking about over communicating or flooding your team with emails and meetings. I'm talking about having clear, consistent communication. So, here are some simple things that make a massive difference if you want to improve communication. And that is to have a weekly update, a short team huddle, transparent expectations within your team members, and have honest conversations when things aren't going as planned. And here's what most business managers underestimate about yourself is your employees don't expect you to have all the answers all at once when you're taking on a struggling department. They already know it's struggling. They don't expect perfection, but they do expect clarity. They want to feel informed, they want to feel included. And sometimes that alone is enough to shift the energy in a struggling department. Okay, everyone, let's go into segment six, which is being a leader during difficult times. And I wanted to talk about this because let's just talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough in the leadership circles, and that is the emotional weight of managing a struggling department. Because while you're working to fix operational problems, you're also carrying a full workload on your shoulders. You're also dealing with leadership pressure, employee frustration, performance expectations, staffing challenges, budget concerns, and endless streams of decisions that all feel very urgent all at the same time. And some days you feel like the progress is invisible. So, for example, you can solve one problem and then three more show up. You push for change and your team resists. You have upper management wanting faster results. And quietly in the back of your mind, you start to wonder if this department can actually turn around. And that's where resilience becomes your most important leadership quality. Because here's the truth, turnarounds are rarely dramatic. They're not one big moment. They are built slowly through daily consistency, rebuilding trust one interaction at a time with your team, straightening your systems, holding your team accountable, and staying committed even when the progress isn't visible yet. And the strongest business managers aren't the ones who never struggle. They're the ones who actually keep showing up with discipline and intention, even on those hard days. And you don't transform a department overnight. Let's just be honest here. You transform it through daily discipline, consistency, and resilience. Okay, everyone, let's go into segment 7, which is what success actually looks like. So, before we close out today's episode, let's redefine what success actually looks like when you're rebuilding a struggling department. Because a lot of managers set themselves up for frustration when you're trying to chase perfection. And honestly, perfection is not the goal when you're taking on a struggling department. The real success looks like having clearer communication across your team, less confusion about roles and priorities, better morale, stronger accountability, fewer people walking out the door, and fewer fires to put out every single day. That's the real progress. And honestly, one of the most rewarding experiences that you will have as a business manager is watching a department slowly come back to life, watching your operational shift from reactive to being organized and steady, and watching trust get rebuilt within your team slowly but surely. And that's the leadership progress that you want to see. It's not all the flashy stuff. It's the real kind of work that's built in the quiet, unglamorous way, the day to day work of showing up and leading with intentions with your team. Okay, everyone. So, some closing thoughts. If you are currently in the middle of managing a struggling department, this is what I want you to take away from today's episode. Don't rush to fix what you haven't fully understand. Before you restructure, before you make any big moves, listen first, observe, stabilize, communicate clearly, set expectations, and start rebuilding consistency one day at a time. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do as a business manager is walk into a room full of chaos and simply just start creating stability. So, again, thank you so much for tuning into Life of a Business Manager podcast. If you found today's episode helpful, share it with another manager who's probably experiencing the same problem. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you haven't already, please follow the podcast, leave a review, and connect with the Life of a Business Manager community online. I do have my website in the show notes below. And if you have any questions about the role, suggestions for future topics, or stories of your own, I'd love to hear from you. You can find my email in the show notes below. As always, thank you so much for listening, and don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, bye everyone. Hi everyone. Just a reminder, the content provided in our podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as professional advice. Listeners are encouraged to consult with appropriate professionals before making any business decisions based on the information provided in this podcast. We do not endorse any products or services mentioned unless stated in any of our episodes. Thank you so much for listening.